like if you have grit and hustle, anybody can be successful in this field. Here's the thing. If you don't have enough business to eat, you're going to take on those clients because you need to eat. And that's a hard place to be. Also to make sure you don't buy a lemon and that you're not in court. $350 with a $600 HOA, or let's call $100,000, $450 with no HOA. So that's how your purchasing power changes. I'm like, hey team, unless a house is burning down figuratively or literally, I don't want you to call me. We sometimes as agents want to create these rules and then we don't follow our own rules. And then we're annoyed. It's like, well, you can't be annoyed because you were texting them at 9 p.m.
Hi, and welcome to the Key Concepts podcast. Today, we're joined with our special guest, Jenica Williams, a realtor who has guided countless people through one of the biggest decisions of their life, buying and selling a home. So, Jenica, briefly, can you tell me how long have you been in the real estate industry?
Sure. It's been 20 years. So January of this year was 20 years.
If you could go back, and if you were not doing real estate right now, what else do you think you might be doing?
I don't know. I feel like I never thought I'd be in sales. But the entrepreneurial vibe just really spoke to me. So probably something along that way, like entrepreneurial.
So looking back at your first year as a realtor, what was that defining moment that was like, yes, I'm definitely in the right field. This is what I'm meant to do?
Well, my first year I started on a team and it was 2008 when I started selling. So I initially was as a receptionist in the business and then transitioned to selling. It was a hard time. So 2008, the market had crashed. I joined a team and it wasn't good. So those first few years when I had my license, I actually almost got out of the business. And so that was hard. It wasn't until I joined Keller Williams, got a coach, started doing all the things they tell you to do, but I didn't want to do, that I started to see success. So that's when I started seeing it click, but it took a couple of years.
What qualities do you think someone needs to be successful in real estate?
We say at Keller Williams that it's simple, but it's not easy. So if you have grit and hustle, anybody can be successful in this field. I personally did go to school for real estate. You don't have to go to school for real estate. I mean, you don't have to have a degree for real estate. And I did, but if you, are able to hustle, knock on doors, do open houses, talk to people, you can be successful. I think that's the one thing they don't teach you in school when you are taking your real estate classes. They don't tell you, oh, by the way, you start from nothing. You have to build a book of business. I think that's the hardest part about being a realtor.
So for someone that's just starting out, let's say they get their license, how do they evaluate who to go with? I mean, should you be looking at your compensation package, your commissions, the cuts that the firm is taking? Like, how do you evaluate who to choose and where to go? Yeah,
that's a good question. So one class I took, they said, doing your interview as a real estate agent, when you go into a broker, it's like the easiest interview because they just hire you on the spot, because guess what? You pay the broker. And I don't think a lot of the people not in real estate understand that. So every agency typically will take a cut, and there's some who take very little and they also give very little. So with Keller Williams, they're big on education, and we have what's called a cap system. So you really have to lay out all of your, what you're looking for. And also are they going to pay for your signs? Are they going to pay for business cards? Are they going to kind of help you get started? Will you have a coach? So there's a lot of different things to look at. But I think if you're new in the business and you don't know what to ask, it can be hard. So it'd be good to couple with an agent or talk to somebody who can help guide you. But just know that every agency will want you because they want your book of business and you essentially pay them. And I don't think that's always known from the outside.
Well, yeah. So you're paying them for their resources and their paperwork, I guess, their processes?
Usually it's a percentage. And so, yes, you're paying them so that they are the broker and you work under them, but they might provide marketing, or maybe they provide a website, or for us at Keller Williams, it's a lot about the culture. So that's, I've been there since, I want to say 09-ish. And so I've been there ever since. And a lot of it is the culture that keeps me there, because I just feel like it's a good group of people. They're big on training, big on personal growth. And that's really important to me.
When people first start out as a realtor, they sell 1 or 2 homes a year. So how does a realtor kind of get unstuck doing that 1 to 2 years a home?
Yeah. I mean, I really think sometimes what happens with new agents is they spend so much time going to all these classes and very little doing the prospecting, right? So we say in a lot of the trainings that I've taken, if you're not lead generating, that's what we call it, going out looking for business, knocking on doors, talking to people, all that other stuff doesn't matter if you don't have people to talk to and people that need your help. So I think if new agents could focus mostly on prospecting and then also the training. I mean, you need to know what you're doing when you're out there, but I think they flip-flop it and do so much training and then they're only doing a couple sales a year. And it's hard to live off of that. I mean, that, after expenses and stuff, 1 to 2 deals is hard to live off of.
Yeah, it sounds like you can have all the education and knowledge, but if you can't get the customers or can't put yourself out there as someone that people can rely on, then it gets a little bit challenging. And
it does take time to get that started. I know when I was first in the business, they said, oh, well, you have to have 6 months of savings. I didn't have that. Like, I didn't come from, a family that just had money. Like, I couldn't just have the 6 months. And so I think, I did work 2 jobs. So sometimes it's about having a second job and then transitioning over, but you don't necessarily have to have the 6 months of savings. But if you hustle on that lead generation side, you'll see the fruits of your labor, but you have to put that work in. I think a lot of new agents maybe, don't or aren't coached even on the conversations and how to talk to people. And you just go out there, you might do 20 open houses and have no clients from it. It's like, well, what are you saying at the open houses that maybe is hindering you from turning those people into clients?
When I went to an open house that Jenica had, and I was like, hey, can I just use you as a realtor? Because I don't want to pay you your commissions. I don't want to pay for my realtor commissions. Can you just represent me and the seller if I want to put in an offer in this house? Because I'm like, well, that's a lot of money at the end of the day. Inflation has gone up so much. So how do you justify, or what goes into all that work that justifies that commission that realtors get?
Yeah, it's a great question. I know. And people think we're like driving around in our Benzes or Range Rovers and just, I drive a Highlander, but I think there's so much. And I was just with Deanna the other day talking, she's my business partner. And it was like, we were looking at a house that needed a ton of repairs, like going through each thing, standing water, pool work that needs to be done, all these things that people don't really see. We are not just out like driving the fancy cars, showing property. There's so much behind the scenes. There's late night work. There's, I was up at 4 this morning prepping newsletters. I mean, there's just a lot you don't see. And I think something else to keep in mind is when you look at your commission check, let's say, 3% of 500,000, it's 15,000. When you look at the take home of an agent, it's probably 50%. So it might be 7,500, which sounds great. And then you're talking about expenses and mileage and all these different things. And if you close one deal that month, maybe it's, $4,000 after or before taxes. So I think it seems like a lot. And I remember when I got my first paycheck and I was so excited. And then it's like, oh, but I didn't have anything else in escrow, right? So 5,000 to 7,000 sounds like a lot. But if that's the only deal you have and you have nothing else coming up, you have to save that so that you can eat the next month. So I think there's a misconception. But I would say it's normally like probably 50% of what the take home is to realtors versus the gross commission that you see. When you get in it though, if people aren't telling you all those numbers, you think, oh, this is great. I just made this much money. It's like, you have to put it away and you have to put money away for taxes because, right? It doesn't come out of your checks when you're an independent contractor.
And then you have people like me who are going to come and say, hey, work for less, right? And then so you're going to have to negotiate your commissions and try to see what works. So it makes sense why you tell people, no, I'm going to work for the right fee because you're basically working for free at that point. But then that often can kind of lead to having to deal with like rude clients, rude sellers, or rude realtors. And how do you navigate those hard conversations when people are just being, mean or rude to you?
Yeah. I think I've learned and I've grown a lot since being in the business, but really seeking to understand. So when a client comes like, hey, I'm really upset about this, asking the question first. And even with our staff now, like our assistant or, operations manager, it's like, hey, what happened here? Versus me assuming or saying, I think I know what happened, trying to seek to understand. And then oftentimes the situation can, will fizzle out or we can come to a solution. And if we can't, we tell clients when we sign our agreements, like, hey, sometimes this doesn't work out and that's okay. But we would like to know that you don't want to work with us versus, and we'd like to fix the issue versus you just letting me know you bought a house at the new home community and didn't tell me. And we've been working together for 6 months. I feel like we're the type of agent and the type of team that we're going to take the high road. So we're not going to get into drama or bad mouth or anything like that. And sometimes like there's times when we have to own up, right? Like if we weren't answering our phone or had something going on, or we're human, and how can we make it right? And how can we try to figure this out? And there's sometimes when it's like, hey, this just isn't the right fit, right? It's not going to work out and that's okay. We can part ways. But here's the thing. if you don't have enough business to eat, you're going to take on those clients because you need to eat. And that's a hard place to be in, which is why I go back to lead generation and finding more clients, because when you have enough, when you get that one client that's like disrespecting you or not, not appreciating your boundaries or, respecting those, you tend to go to them because you think, oh my gosh, I don't have enough. I'll go to them, versus when you have enough, you say, you know what, I'd love to make this work. Here's what I need, or here's what I can do for you. But if it doesn't work, that's okay. And that's a hard statement to make when you need the business. And so, which is why I always go back to like, keep being out there trying to get more business so that you don't have to feel desperate to take on people that maybe aren't respectful towards you.
Do you ever see people trying to submit offers without a realtor, and could that ever backfire on people?
That's a good question. So there is in our contracts now, in our listing agreements, where it says if we have an unrepresented buyer, so kind of like the situation you said, you could be what's called unrepresented. And typically we will already have a percentage, let's call it 1%, and all commissions are negotiable. So we have to say that. But let's say we put in our listing agreement that we have a 1% additional fee to the seller if we represent an unrepresented buyer, if we have an unrepresented buyer. So what that means is you come to me, you want to represent yourself, but let's say like you don't have the paperwork, you don't know what to do. So I can give you the paperwork as a listing agent. But if you start asking me, hey, what should I ask for repairs? What should I do for this? I'm not allowed to give you that advice because then I'm representing you. So I can give you all the paperwork. I can probably tell you what box to check or sign here. But as soon as I start giving you advice on what to do, then I become your representative. And so that's where it gets a little challenging. Without a realtor, like how do you know what to ask for on a repair, like on a home inspection? You might not know it as a consumer. Which thing should I ask for? What's reasonable? What's not? What if you ask for too little or too much? And then the seller's like, nope. And then they, cancel because you guys can't come to an agreement. So I think what we say now too, because real estate has changed with the internet and all these properties are at everybody's fingertips, even the consumers, is we're here now to for the customer service piece, because we really, value that strongly, but also to make sure you don't buy a lemon and that you're not in court. Like those are kind of the things that we maybe bring value to more than like, hey, can you just show me the house? Because you often might be going to the house on the open house, or like, you don't need us as much in that respect. But I think when you're making the biggest financial decision of your life, it's good to have somebody on your side to make sure that all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted.
Yeah, that's a good point. But for those that then end up wanting to use you as a double agent, as you mentioned, the double agency, how do you manage your fiduciary responsibility to both the buyer and the seller?
So just to step back real fast, when we got into real estate, or I got into real estate, it was like, I got into real estate to have choices. And so one of the choices is, if I can, I actually don't love it. I don't love dual agency because I don't feel like I can 100% represent you, the buyer, and 100% represent the seller in super good faith. Obviously, it's still allowed in California. Some states it's not. So on our team, oftentimes we'll have Deanna, who works with me, represent the buyer, and then I represent the seller. So there's still that separateness. But we have had transactions where we do both. Oftentimes it's like, hey, I'm buying from my mom, or I'm buying from a friend or somebody at church or whatnot. And we've done that. We like to, if we can in that situation, have the inspection reports done up front. So then it's like, hey, out on the table, what do you guys talk about it initially, and then we'll come in and do the paperwork with that. So
yeah, that definitely makes sense when it's between two family members or friends, and it's less of the negotiate. They probably negotiated up front anyways of what they're going to buy and sell it for. And now it's just doing the paperwork.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about the financial side of things now. And there's a lot of hidden costs or surprises when buying a home, and property taxes are one of those. So what is the general tax rate that people should expect? I know it's different from every region, but generally, how do people research that so they don't get blindsided by the property taxes?
Usually the tax rate is about 1.25%. That's what most lenders in Sacramento County, if you're calling them and saying, hey, what would my mortgage payment be with taxes included, they're usually going to use 1.25%. All the Tri-County websites, Sacramento, El Dorado, Placer County, Yolo, et cetera, those all have websites that you can look up the property taxes, and you can check and see like when the bonds fall off. There's phone numbers you can call. So we'll often look at those for clients prior to them making an offer so that they're aware. And so that's usually how we go about it.
So you said the bonds. So what are bonds exactly?
Yeah.
in the property taxes.
Yeah. So they're Mello-Roos bonds typically for schools and parks, the fire department. There's all kinds of different ones that come up. Some of them fall off after 20 years. Some are indefinite and they keep going on and on. Sometimes you don't know by just looking at them. But it's important when somebody's making an offer that they're not, just thinking it's going to be 1.25% when it's really 1.4. That's something to look at and kind of know the whole picture before you make that offer.
So how do bonds come into play in the first place? I mean, what happens tomorrow? Could I just potentially get a new bond?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or measure?
So usually it's voted in. And so we were talking about a property in Rancho Cordova, and that bond had already been in place, this specific bond, and they just increased it. So it was actually already there. They just increased it, but it was voted in. So usually that's how, it happens. All new builds, like almost everyone that I've ever went into has different bonds. And so they'll say, hey, there's no HOA, no homeowners association, but guess what? The Mello-Roos or extra taxes is $400 a month. It's like, oh, really? So.
Dang, that's crazy. And so then you said that they do fall, well, maybe some of them, but eventually you could look it up on each county's website and there is a potential that they might go down. They might fall off after a period of time. And
a number of them, 20 to 30 years fall off. Yeah.
And are there forever bonds too?
There's some that are indefinite.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So you have to call the phone number. That's what we've been doing. Is there's no really good way to do it besides calling the phone numbers that are attached to the bonds. That's how we've found.
What about utilities? So I know we have right here in Sacramento, we have SMUD and PG&E. And for me, anytime I use any gas, which is my PG&E provider, PG&E is my gas provider, it is crazy expensive. But SMUD is usually a little bit more affordable. There's, times and days and you could, use less electricity, more electricity between the two. But some areas don't have a separate provider. You have PG&E providing both electricity and gas and vice versa. So do you see that being a factor that people are like, I'm going to definitely stay out of that area because they don't have these different utility providers? And does that impact where people move and search for homes?
I think it's definitely a question that comes up. So in El Dorado Hills, that's what it is. It's PG&E. And so people are concerned about that or the rates for it. So then people get solar, right? So that can help offset that. But it is higher for PG&E. So people prefer to have SMUD. But yeah, in El Dorado Hills, there's, it's PG&E up the hill. So for SMUD and electric. So I have had people say, I want to stay out of there because of that. So it's just something to think about.
That's actually a good point though. For people that don't have the options, and they're stuck with like a high provider, utility provider, would then solar be a good alternative to try to reduce some of those costs? Maybe in the long run, right? You got to do your calculations, but.
Yeah. So it depends on the solar and is it leased? Is it owned? Is there a power purchase agreement? So there's a bunch of different things. And sometimes as a consumer, you look at all these options and we've looked at solar a few different times, mostly my husband looking at it. And I'm like, I don't know if it doesn't make that much difference because we have SMUD. I don't really want to invest in it. Now, all new home construction, you have to have solar, right? That's the law. That's how they're all being built. But you just need to know what you're getting because the next question might be, oh, well, will I get that back when I sell my house, right? Is there a adjustment up in my value because I have solar? Well, if it's leased solar, not really because you're just renting the solar. So it doesn't necessarily, give you an upwards adjustment in the value. If it's owned, that's a different story. But yes, people will consider solar when they go up the hill for that reason.
HOA, I know everybody either loves it or hates it. Is it possible to ever dissolve an HOA? And have you ever seen it happen?
Like the HOA just goes away and there's no fee? Not in my experience. Yeah. And one thing I wanted to mention on that, I wish we could share a screenshot, but is how your purchasing power changes when you have an HOA. So I just shared something on my story this morning and don't quote me exactly, but if you are a buyer and your purchase price, let's say for a condo is $350 and your HOA is $600, you could buy a similar property without an HOA for $450. So that's the difference in $350 with a $600 HOA, or let's call $100,000, $450 with no HOA. So that's how your purchasing power changes. But dissolving them, I've never seen that happen.
Home warranties. How does that factor into buying a house? Is that something that you recommend? I mean, I know some people consider I could just pay for the repairs outright. I got to pay for the home warranty. I got to pay every time I call them out to look at something. Is it really worth it, or is it something you recommend?
So we tell people that it's an insurance policy, right? You are buying this and there's always exclusions. And so typically that first year, it's cheaper than if you were to renew the policy. And sometimes you can get the seller to pay for it. So let's say you get the seller to pay for it. It's good for a year. You have older appliances. Hey, you might, I don't think it's bad to have it. They do charge a trip fee, usually around $100 or so, to come in and look at the item. The one thing with home warranties is they will do everything in their power to not have to replace that old water heater or the heater. But I'll tell you a success story, and then your audience can decide if it would be worth the pain. So client has the home warranty, heater air conditioning goes out during the summer. Home warranty is working on it. Well, they can't find the part. Then it's bound back order. Then it's not coming in at all. Then we go into winter season. Then it's cold. So they give her like a temporary heater or temporary AC. And then finally it comes in and she gets a new unit. And let's say it cost $13,000. She maybe had to pay $3,000 out of pocket. So she got a brand new unit for $3,000 because they don't always cover everything. So that's something to keep in mind. She had to wait through summer and winter and all the back and forth and all the things. So if you're willing to deal with that, it could be worth it, but you have to go through that pain. So like we could have had a provider probably go out there within 3 weeks and just replace the whole unit, right? She'd have to pay for it. And she didn't want to, and that's totally her choice. But I think that's something to keep in mind is like, if you can deal with the headache, sure. But when they don't return your call or they can't find the part or like the water heater is so old, just get rid of it. They're like, oh, we can fix it. It's still working. So you just have to decide if it's worth it to, if you can deal with the pain, then yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. My brother has a bad AC unit. In the summer, it sometimes doesn't work when it gets over 100 degrees, and they won't fix it. I mean, they'll say that, hey, it's working again, because when it drops below 100, so they can't ever really fix it because they're like, it's working, it's not working. So he's kind of stuck in that dilemma that you're talking about.
Yeah. And if you don't service the home warranty, there's all these reasons. Dirty filters, they can say, sorry, like we're not covering it because you didn't do the maintenance on it. So there's these different things. And I get asked a lot, hey, here's my home inspection. Can I just have the home warranty fix everything on the home inspection? They don't fix pre-existing conditions. So just one other thing to think about.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Something people can consider. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Well, if you can have the seller throw in like a year or two, and why not if you can get it. So beyond the down payment, closing costs often are a surprise for the buyers and probably for sellers too. How should someone estimate, like, how much is that typically going to range ballpark for people that are trying to budget what the down payment might be plus closing costs? Like, how would they kind of generally calculate that formula?
I would say around 3 to 4% of the purchase price. And then in addition to, your down payment. So if you're putting 20% down, maybe 24% to calculate for the closing costs, somewhere around there. And it depends on what your lender charges. Are they charging an origination fee? Are you having your taxes and insurance impounded into an account and paying with your payment or not? So there's some different things that go into that.
Are you able to negotiate that with the lender? Is that something that you've ever seen happen?
Negotiate having it impounded or not?
Well, the overall closing costs come down. Can you somehow get that stuff
and
waived?
There's different lenders, and you can compare. Like we encourage our clients, like compare and make sure you're comparing apples to apples. Because somebody might say, "Hey, I got a rate of 5.875," and you look at their estimated closing sheet, which is what you want to ask lenders for when you're getting, a quote from them, and then it's like, "Oh yeah, you're paying a point for that." So then, if you're not comparing apples to apples, you might be thinking one's better over the other. But you can definitely shop the lender, shop the rate. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And so there is a way to get maybe some of those closing costs down by just asking, hey, can you just give me a break on this or that? And
or
maybe
is there any way I could get a better deal?
Or lastly, just shop around. All right. Well, everybody's favorite question is, where are interest rates going in the next 6 to 12 months? So let's kind of speculate.
Yeah. Let's have the crystal ball. It's hard to know, right? There's 6.25-ish now. We have seen the market pick up a bit since rates have come down a little bit. We don't know. I mean, it's so hard to know what's going to happen. I wish I could say, here's what's going to happen. I don't know. If they go down, though, I'll tell you what happens if they go down. If they go down, we're going to see probably a lot of people enter the market, and we'll see prices possibly go up if the interest rates go down. And we probably won't ever see them back at 3. I mean, 3 is like I've been doing this 20 years. That's the only time we've ever seen them 3. They were never 3. When you look at the trajectory of rates, it's like we may never in our lifetime see 3 again. Well, then people were hung up on that too from COVID.
Yeah. Well, historically, what were they then? What's the normal range that
have I want to say around 7. Like if you look, because back in the 80s, I mean, when I was a baby, it's like, oh, I bought a house and it was 12%. I mean, you hear people talk about that. What somebody also typically comes back with is, the houses were $80,000. not 500,000. But people were still buying houses then. They're still buying houses now. There's always changes with families or jobs or all these different things. So it's still moving. I think it's not like it's, stopped, but some buyers are more hesitant because of the rates.
Yeah. Well, if they come down, probably market's going to go up. Houses are going to go up. There's going to be more people that are going to be priced into the market because the monthly payment will be probably cheaper. So competition, all that good stuff. So refinance, let's play on the analogy or hypothetical that interest rates do come down a little bit. What is like refinance? Does it make sense? When should someone consider looking into that to see if it works for them?
Yeah. So probably, for somebody who closed with like a 7% rate, if they could get 6% or 5.5%, I think looking at how much is it going to cost you to refi, right? Because it's not free. And then how long will it take you to recoup that cost? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it 5 years? And are you going to be in the home for 5 years? Because if not, right, what is that like break even? Then it doesn't make sense.
So with the refinance, it may not make sense for people to refinance because they may be moving, but what is the typical length that someone does stay in their home?
Yeah, it used to be 7 years, like back when I was first in the business. And now we're because we send anniversary cards to our clients when they've been in their house for so many years. And it's like, happy 12-year anniversary, 13. So I feel like we're seeing people stay in their homes longer now than it used to be, every 5 to 7 years.
Well, yeah, probably a lot of people locked in a low interest rate. And so they're like, no reason to move. I'm not going to get this price again.
Yes.
So then what about a recast? How is that different than a refinance? And when would someone consider that?
Yeah. So I'll give you kind of a scenario. So let's say that you have a house and you want to buy another house, but you don't want to have to sell this house right away. So you might put 5% down on this new house and then after sell your current existing property and take, let's say, 200 down and put it back down on this house that you bought, and they would re-amortize the loan so that your payment goes down. So you basically can take this big chunk, put it on the replacement house, and then your payment will go down. Something to consider though is like you'll probably get a better rate today with 20% down than you will with 5%. So whatever you do on that replacement property, which let's say is 5%, and so your rate's a little higher, when you put all that money down, you don't get the better rate.
Oh, gotcha.
But it could be a good option especially when it's in a competitive market or a neighborhood where you're competing with other offers, to do that. And then your payment can be re-amortized.
If you could do the 20%, go for it. You might get a better rate. But a recast, it doesn't change your rate, right? It just re-amortizes the loan over the 30-year period. So everything in the loan stays the same. It just extends it to that 30-year mark or whatever is kind of left over.
Yeah. And you usually will have to make a few payments. You can't just say, I closed in June and in July I want to do the recast. There might be 6 months that the lender wants you to make that payment before you can do the recast. My lender that I've worked with is like, it's a very nominal fee to do it, under $1,000, maybe $500 to do that. It depends on each lender. But
for buyers, do you see any common mistakes that buyers typically run into when they're looking at homes?
Maybe not being prepared for the financing part of it. Also, buying furniture or cars or co-signing for people during the transaction. The lender will check your credit the day of closing. So they will check and see, did you buy furniture? Did you buy a car? And all that changes your debt to income ratio. So let's say you're buying a $500,000 house and then you go out and buy a $30,000 car. They say, actually now you're approved for a $450,000 house, not $500,000. So I would say that's one thing. I think with a good realtor on your side, like, they'll guide you with the steps to make. Present the information, then you have to ultimately as a buyer make the choice. But I feel like with a good agent, there doesn't have to be a bunch of mistakes. Yeah. Maybe not acting on the house right away and then somebody else takes it and makes the offer and gets the offer accepted. I think sometimes in the buying process though, it's a process you have to go through, right? As a new buyer, there's a house on the market, a bunch of people want it, you want to offer lower, and not until you've missed out on a few, like by the fourth house, you're like, how much more do I need to offer? So I would say that's the one thing, but it's the process. It's like a buying mindset process that I think a lot of buyers have to go through sometimes.
Yeah, everybody wants a deal, but when it's competitive, like it's going to be hard. What about on the seller side? Is there common mistakes that sellers make? I
would say, like in our current market, is not getting your home ready for sale, prepping it, staging it, painting it neutral colors, pricing it appropriately, as in like what is currently selling or what is an attractive price right now to get buyers to come and look at your house and make an offer. we just say you have that one shot to, show your house to the world. So if you don't take those measures to prep, then it'll often come back to bite you later. And sometimes we are surprised by, sometimes sellers are willing to do price drops are not cheap, right? So if you're reducing your price, you might reduce it by $20,000 versus maybe spending the $3 to $8 to do painting and staging, right? Some of the other things, like a price drop costs you more than some of those prepped items will. And we just find that that's the biggest thing is pricing and then condition. Yeah.
I can see that being a mistake where you just kind of list your house probably lower. You're going to get lower than what you would want because you don't go through the process of doing the repairs. That could be a huge blind spot for a seller thinking, oh, the house down the street sold for this amount. My house will sell for this amount. Well, the condition over there was probably better than your condition. So yeah, that's a huge price drop compared to what it would be for the repair. I'm going to keep that in mind for myself. Okay. Is there anything about real estate that we didn't cover that you want to dive into? Any direction you want to go?
Just maybe like mental health of real estate, like as an agent, you're always going. I think there's so many of us out there that like don't take time to like turn off our phone or be with family because you're always on. And I think it's such a important part that people don't talk about a lot. You're just always accessible. And over time, like what that does to you. So I've implemented Thursdays, Sundays I take off. I have somebody who covers for me to really be able to recharge so that I can be the best for my clients. But I think that's something where, it's almost like a badge of honor, like being busy, right? It's like, we're so busy or I'm busy. And it's like, but what are you missing out on because you're so busy? Or are you eating lunch? Or like, there's different things in life that you need to just like take care of yourself. And I think this business has the ability to like take all your time. And I think you have to ask yourself, is it worth it to give everything to real estate? And then you kind of lose part of yourself. So I think that's just an area where, as a realtor that's been doing it 20 years, like I'm constantly having to like create boundaries so that I can be healthy and have a family life and, a successful real estate career.
So for work-life balance, then you just take a few days off and you're like, you know what, someone else could do it this day if something comes up.
And the urgent things we'll handle, right? Like an offer comes in or a client needs something. And I think it's hard when you're in business, you're like, oh, I don't want to tell people no, if I'm being vulnerable. But like when I went to Switzerland, I'm like, hey team, unless a house is burning down figuratively or literally, I don't want you to call me. I love our clients, but I also need to be able to refresh and rejuvenate. And there's people like, if so-and-so can't handle it, you can go here. And guess what? There was a couple houses burning. They had to call me. It was like different time zone and I handled it. But I think that there's always more to do. Now as a realtor, you're a creator, you're doing newsletters, you're showing property, you're dealing with repairs, you're constantly at your phone. And I feel like I've almost developed ADHD from always being on. Like it can challenge you. So I would just say having those boundaries is something that, when you're at the end of your road, are you going to say, I wish I would have sold one more house, or like, I wish I would have had more balance so that I could, show up good in all areas. Cause I think it's easy to be like this rock star here, but then what suffers over here?
Yeah. That's a good insight
for
into
any entrepreneur, I think, but.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Cause you're working 8, 10, 12, 16-hour days. I mean, I might see a property at 8 o'clock at night. I'm like, hey, you might be having dinner. You don't respond. Is like, is that bad customer service or is that you just having work-life balance?
Yeah.
So,
and it's also about the boundaries you create with your client. So if we're agents and we're saying, hey, after 8, if I don't respond, I'll get back to you the next morning. But if I'm responding at 9 p.m., by all means, you should be texting me because I'm telling you by my interaction, my communication that I'm working right now versus like having better structure and saying, hey, if I don't get back to you, I will get back to you the next morning. But I think if we sometimes as agents want to create these rules and then we don't follow our own rules and then we're annoyed. It's like, well, you can't be annoyed because you were texting them at 9 p.m. They thought you were working.
Well, that's definitely a lot to consider for people that want to get into the real estate industry.
Yes.
Is like, you are an entrepreneur. You have to make your own path. You may be working 16-hour days to do the marketing, to do the reels, to post online. And that could easily be overlooked. You're not just opening up a door and be like, hey, come buy it. Right. You know what I mean? Sounds like there's a lot that happens behind the scenes. So Jenica, where can people find you and connect with you on?
Sure. So at Jenica Realtor is my handle on Instagram, the Jenica Williams Real Estate Team, and you can find us all on there. We'd be happy to connect.
Awesome. We'll put all your contacts in the description and the links below for people that want to find you. So I have a segment where the last guest asks a question for the next guest. And the question that I have for you is, what was the key decision point that made you want to get into real estate?
I was a receptionist at a real estate firm in college and was handing out commission checks. And I also come from a background of we didn't have a lot growing up. I started working young. I never wanted to struggle with finances. And I was handing out commission checks to all these agents. And I decided I want to be on the other side. And so that was the turning point of well, I can get my license. I don't really like to be in sales, but I can get my license and try it. And so I think when I saw what they were doing and I got to really pick the brains of those agents that were there on the weekend answering the calls, it helped me to see that could be my next move. And so that's when it changed for me.
So what drives you to keep going, even when it's tough and everything?
To have the freedom. So I think because of my past upbringing, I don't want to struggle and I want to have choices. And I think real estate allows that. I get to be able to go to my kids' basketball game or volunteer at their school. That might mean I still have to work later that night, right? But I have the flexibility. There's nobody telling me, oh, you can't do this. So I can schedule my clients around it. And I think, that flexibility is what keeps me going. I'm I don't think there's any job I can have where I can, pick my kids up from school. And mind you, it's through people, right? We have a team so that my team can then show clients property at 3 p.m. if I am home with my kids. And my kids are getting older. But I think that's what fuels me is that flexibility to create my own schedule and then create my own income. If I want to sell this many houses, it's all in the effort you put in.
So Jenica, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your stories, and your tips today. It's clear that realtors are not just about transactions. They're really about navigating challenges and guiding people through some of the biggest decisions that they're making in their life. So thank you for helping them dream bigger than they ever thought possible. With that, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a good rest of your day and take care. Bye-bye.